This is the new Absolute 60 Fly, and it sets the marker for a new style of Absolute flybridge boat, and there's some very interesting design decisions that have been taken on board this thing. The price starts from 1.4 million euros excluding VAT, and what we're going to do first is get out to sea and show you the cockpit, because that is probably the most interesting part of this boat. And of course it's out here where you really feel the benefit of this new cockpit design that Absolute has used. This is an opaque mare hydraulic platform. It's got a weight limit of 400 kilograms, so this is where your tender will sit. Makes it very easy, of course, to launch and recover the tender and all of the other water toys that people are into these days. It's got built-in steps, and what's really nice is once you're at the steps, because they've got this extended aft area, you've still got a passageway across the back of the boat, and you have fantastic access still into the crew cabin, even with the platform down. So I can walk across here. You can get up to the cockpit from both sides, obviously. It's really easy and safe as well because there's railings all over the place, and these are nice and high and come up to meet you. And then you're into the cockpit. And part of this new design is the modularity of this cockpit area. So in fact, the boat sort of comes with a completely bare space, and then you spec it as you wish, either with this modular furniture that Absolute will provide for you, and it moves in all sorts of different ways. There's really too many to explain, but you can make it into a sunbed, 3 seats next to each other, 2 seats next to each other. You can arrange them along this way, along that way, for dining, sunbathing. Really, it's completely endless. But you can also choose your own furniture. So if there's a furniture supply that you particularly like, they'll install that for you as well. And because it's got this see-through transom, you have this brilliant connection to the water. So if kids, guests are swimming, you're in the cockpit, you can still be in contact with them and see what they're doing. It's a really novel approach to this area, and I think it works really well. When it comes to driving in Absolute, you sort of know what to expect because they've been fitting their flybridge boats with IPS for 20 years now, and this one has got IPS 950, which means 725 horsepower per side. And if you want to cruise at 30 knots and top out higher than that, well, the Absolute range isn't really going to be for you. You want to be looking at stuff from Ferretti, Sunseeker, Princess. But if you're happy to cruise at 22 knots, then this boat is very rewarding because it's just so serene. The installation is fantastic. You know, they know IPS inside out, so it handles really nicely. It isn't ponderous. If you have to turn back on yourself, it does it nice and quickly. There's a nice amount of heel in the turns, and it settles down at a 22 knot cruise really nicely. And at that speed, you've got a range of just shy of 300 nautical miles, which is really pretty good going considering you're covering ground at that sort of pace. But what I really like about Absolute, and this is the same for pretty much every single one I've tested, is that they really think about the ergonomics of their helms. Yes, this isn't a boat that you're going to be throwing around like a sports boat, but look at this driving position, it's absolutely fantastic. I've got the wheel nice and central and close to me, it's adjustable so you can adjust the angle. The throttles are on this little pod here, they come right under your hand, just where you want them to be. And you've got the IPS joystick mounted a little bit higher, so if you want to stand up when you're coming into moor, that's a little bit higher up, so it's easier to reach. And I can sit back in my seat. I've got the wheel and the throttles right under my hands. Great view of this really clean dash. They just really know how to do this stuff well. The seat's fully adjustable as well. It's got a lift bolster. I genuinely couldn't ask for more from up here. The only thing is, it's a very calm day today. It's like a fish pond. So I'm not learning a huge amount about this boat's rough weather capability, but what I will say is I've tested other Absolutes, other flybridge Absolutes in more challenging conditions, and generally they feel very, very solid indeed. They're solidly built, well put together boats. Now, as I said, top end speed isn't really much to write home about. 28.6 knots we got today. So you really are going to be cruising between 20 and 25 knots. As I said, it just feels really comfortable at that speed. This boat's got Volvo's trim assist, so you don't even have to think about the trim of the boat. They're just working constantly to keep the boat at the right pitch. Not being challenged today at all because of the conditions. The other thing I like about this helm position is that even though you've got a third station in the cockpit, which is an option, so you've got a joystick down there and bow thruster control, so if you're coming in stern too, you can be right there close to the quayside. If I stand up here, I can see the extremities of the bathing platform. So if I do want to berth the boat from up here, I've got great all-round view. Obviously, if I'm coming alongside this side, I can see the quayside really easily. But I really like the fact that I can see the back and the front of the boat from this position, so you don't have to rely on that third station if you don't want to. So So top marks for the upper helm then, but you're not always going to be driving the boat in conditions as good as this. So let's go and check out the lower helm. Things are also very good down here at the lower helm. The ergonomics again are really, really good. I like the fact that the seats mean that you can sit, obviously, but the bolster is nice and high, so you can stand and drive really comfortably. Even someone 6'1" like me, you can have a nice view forward. This is quite low, and there's a very thick mullion on this side, but someone of my height, you can drive comfortably. You're not having to sort of stoop to look under the brow of the windscreen. I really like the fact that you can stand and drive at this helm. And of course that plays into the fact that you've got this side door, so you can have that open. You can really easily get out onto the side decks to help with the crewing or talk to the crew. Works really, really well. All the instrumentation is digital. Naturally, you've got a Volvo screen and then the 2 Garmin MFDs, and you also have Absolute boat management system, which puts all of the systems at your fingertips. And it's nice that you've got a picture of this actual boat in the middle of the screen. That's a really cool touch. But here you have access to bilges, fuel levels, your AC, DC power. You can even control the aircon from here. It's all there on one screen, which is really nice. But of course you've got manual buttons as well for stuff that you're going to use all the time. There's proper switches, which again is something that I always like to see. And it's very, very quiet down here. In fact, only at full RPM does the sound levels go over 70 decibels, which for a big planing boat like this is really impressive. And at 22 knots, the cruising speed I mentioned earlier, you're looking at about 66, 67 decibels. So I'm talking now completely naturally. You would not have to raise your voice at all to talk to people around the saloon. Even if they're back in the galley, you're not having to shout at all. And that's another benefit of IPS. The engines are tucked a long way back in the hull. There's lots of insulation, deck, doors between you and them. It means that down here it's really, really quiet. Really lovely place to cruise from.
So that's what the Absolute 60 Fly is like to drive. Now let's have a closer look at the deck spaces.
Of course, though there's a lot of focus in the cockpit, this is a flybridge boat, so you have this top deck to enjoy as well. And much like downstairs, the aft end of this flybridge is left completely open, really, for you to do with what you want. This particular boat, they've just got a couple of sun lounges here, but if you wanted modular furniture like downstairs and a table, you can have that. Of course, you can always source your own furniture as well. And this has a canopy that pops out, buttons down here, so you can have a bit of shade over there as well. There's a hardtop, obviously, but they haven't gone for a sunroof here because this boat has got solar panels, and that allows you to run the boat's domestic supply apart from the air conditioning when you're at anchor, for example, without having the generator running. So you can have your music, fridges running, things like that completely silently. But it does mean that you don't have a sunroof here on the hardtop. And the rest of the layout is pretty formulaic, but it works really well. And again, there are the little details. The fact that this moulding here has got some relief on it just makes it a bit more interesting, as it's the first thing that you see when you come up onto the flybridge. Fridge, ice maker, the usual stuff. And again, it's that attention to detail that Absolute is so good at. This heavy lid, they've actually got a proper slot for it just here, so you don't have to find a space on the table or on the counter to put that, because under here you've got the grill. Simple but really well executed. One of the main characteristics about this boat's exterior design is these fins down the back here which cover up the mooring gear. But of course this design means that there's no guardrails back here, so where do you hang your fenders? Well, instead of having the clip-on eyelets that lots of boats go for, they've actually got mini pop-up cleats that you can loop your fenders around, and actually it's a better solution because it means you can adjust the height of them more easily. The other thing is, because of the design of these, there isn't space to put any lockers in there, so to store the fenders you're a little bit limited. You can just chuck them all down to the crew cabin, of course, and there is a bit of bespoke storage forward on the coach roof, but there isn't actually anywhere particularly convenient to chuck those quickly. However, the side decks are really good, and they're covered a long way down the side deck as well, so you have a bit of protection. There's also lighting up here, and these fantastic guardrails. Once you get up to this point, you've got guardrail all the way forward, and of course they're open, so that you still have this great connection to the water, both on deck and when you're sitting in the saloon. And up here on the foredeck, you've just got another really great socialising space. And again, they've really thought about what they can do to utilise it best. So you have this flip-up section to create a seat that faces into the boat. You have a table here, obviously, that goes up and down and expands, so you can use it for a light lunch if you want to. There's pop-up lights on both sides, cup holders, and there's also a canopy that attaches so you can have a bit of shade up here. It does feel like they've really thought of everything. The interior, well, not only is it very high quality. What you've really noticed on board Absolutes is how solid the flooring is. There is not a squeak on any floorboard when you walk through this boat, and that really makes it feel like a quality product. But also I love the attention to sort of simple practical stuff. For example, the table here slides away like that, so that when you're crewing, using the boat, you've got an even wider passageway here, so you're not going to catch yourself on the table. All the corners are nice and rounded. I mean, it's a really stylish looking interior, but it's not hard edged and impractical. You've got a handhold nicely built in here. Again, rounded corners, nice deep sink with pop-up tap, full height fridge freezer. And then there's the storage solutions. So you've got proper bespoke storage here for all the boat's crockery, but then they've utilised the space underneath the sofa as well, and you're not having to sort of lift up these cushions and locker lids. These are locking catches, and then here you've got all of the boat's crockery as well. You've got glasses on that side, and actually quite a small step up as well. Obviously it's not a completely flat floor here. You've got cabins down below here, but there's just a shallow step, and then you're up into the main part of the saloon. Obviously this is where the television pops up from, directly opposite this seating area. Again, it's really comfortable. The upholstery is really good as well, hard wearing, but looks and feels nice, won't get too hot or cold like leather or vinyl might do. And you have an opening window. The idea, because I've mentioned about having everything running off the solar panels rather than running the generator, is that you can ventilate this boat, open the doors, open the windows, open the side door, which has also got a window in it, and then you don't have to run the air conditioning even at anchor. So it's natural ventilation and it's completely quiet. That's the idea. Whether that works when it's really hot, who knows, but that's what they're going for with this boat. And then of course we're here to the helm station, which we've spoken about out at sea, and you have the companionway here, which obviously leads down to the accommodation. Now there is also a 62 fly in the Absolute range, and that's going to stay. This will run alongside that boat because their layouts are actually quite different. And the significant difference with this one is that the master cabin is forward on this sort of half deck. And the benefit of that is you're a bit higher up, you're further away from the machinery space, so it's quieter at night. You can't hear all the generator, air conditioning whirring and clicking away. And you also get this fantastic slightly elevated view. I mean, these windows, a bit cartoonish from the outside, and the looks are going to divide opinion, but the inside you can really see the benefit. This is a fantastic space for what is just over a 60-foot boat. And of course this end is perfect designed to have the separate heads unit. So pocket door, Absolute use these really well, sliding doors so that you don't get doors gobbling up space, but you've got a separate shower cubicule in there. The finish is great. It's a really good size. Even for a 60-footer, that feels quite special. You've got a totally flat floor in here, headroom as you can see. I'm 6'1" and I've got plenty of space above my head. There's absolutely no intrusions on the floor, good sized bed, and as well as all of this natural lighting, you've got really nice subtle artificial lighting as well. And over there, you've got a really nice sort of semi-walk-in wardrobe. For a 60-foot boat, this is a properly luxurious cabin. And that means amidships you have your guest accommodation. So there's a twin behind me here. It doesn't have an ensuite, but this is the day heads in a good position right by the stairway, and actually that's got a really good size separate shower cubicle, finished again to a really high standard. And actually this cabin here, which is your VIP cabin, because of its location here in the middle of the boat, feels like a mini master cabin. I mean, look at the bathroom you've got. Again, really, really good size, beautiful specification. Headroom down here, almost as good as the cabin, the master forward. Really big windows, you've got an opening port as well, and loads of storage for clothes. It's a really, really smart guest cabin. The good thing about this layout is despite having a much lower cockpit, they haven't compromised the crew cabin. And in fact, they say that with customers, this has proved very popular with kids, friends of kids. It's a nice enough cabin to actually be a sleeping space for people who aren't crew. You step a long way down into it, but that's so that you've got good headroom when you're down here. This boat's being prepped for a boat show, so there's quite a lot of kit in here, so you'll have to excuse that. But I wanted to show you the dimensions of this place. Okay, I can just about stand up here, but it's a really, really nice space. This is where the washing machine is as well, and you've got a bathroom, of course, with just a curtain that pulls across. The crucial thing though is if crew are in here, they've got direct access to the engine room through a watertight door. There's also a hatch for quick inspections, but again, on a boat of this size, it's nice to have two totally separate access points to the engine room. So through the watertight door, and here you are in the engine room, and this is the hatch from the cockpit. You can see the ladder here, so this is where you want to come down if you're coming in from the boat, but it is nice to have that access. and actually it's a pretty good installation. There's a lot in here. You've got your generator in the middle here, obviously you've got the 725 horsepower engines either side, and there is the option to have a seakeeper down here as well, so that's got to squeeze in somewhere. This boat hasn't got it fitted, but it's really nicely executed, really clean, really tidy, very easy to get to everything, so you do have to come down here at sea. It doesn't feel too cramped and constricted.
Thank you very much for watching our review of the Absolute 60 Fly. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video.